She would know better than us.
Mm. So just so you guys know, this will be picking up your audio. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's my privilege to welcome everyone to the course selection presentation. My talk tonight is fairly limited. I'm just going to lead us in prayer, and then I'm going to turn you over to our very capable academic counseling staff, Mr. Mitz, Mr. Sanders, and Mr. Bowman. So we'll just begin by putting ourselves in God's presence, making the sign of the cross together, and the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and we'll say, Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. The Lord is with you, now and ever shall be. The world is open. Amen. So Thomas More, blessed and nice, peace in our hearts forever. Thank you, Mr. Adams. So, welcome to the course selection night. This slideshow is going to appear on the course selection site on our school website. And towards the end of this talk, when I'm doing talking, Mr. Whip is going to take you through some of the resources, including where those particular things are located. And so we're going to do that. We're also recording tonight, so we'll see if that we're going to add that, the recording of that too. And I might even do a narrated screencast, right, just to make sure the information gets to you. A lot of information tonight, so we'll go through it pretty quick. And I might skip over some slides, but don't panic, the slides will be there for you to view further down the road. So, Lon, you're going to flip around? Excellent. Yeah. Just so you know, Mr. Sanders deals primarily with the 8, 9, and 10. Notice he can certainly help with the 11s and 12s. Mr. Whip and I kind of do a lot of stuff with the senior classes. Okay. This is this is probably, if you take no other message away from tonight, please take this away. It is a very daunting task that you guys are going to go through, what you're going to talk about, right? And it could be, especially when it's your first child, it is difficult. That's quite daunting task, right? But it's the first time for some of you guys, we've been through this a number of times. So a lot of the questions reappear. So we kind of know we have a system in place, and we're pretty confident that we can help you and your sons and daughters through it. You may not know all the process in detail, but it all does work out. And just to give you a little, your students, ask all the time, will my son or daughter graduate? We're going to show you a quick slide, not spend any time on it, about graduation requirements, because STM students do graduate. Because we demand full course loads in grades 10, 11, and 12, our students graduate with a ton of extra credits, and we ensure that they need those credits all the time. So that's not something that you will really have to be worried about. Okay? What has happened so far is that we have all, spoken to all the grade 11s and this spoke to grade 10s in a CLC block, where we went over all the course selection information. Then I have visited all the grade 11 classes for another follow-up visit. And Mr. Whip has gone to some of the grade 10s. I go to one grade 10. Mr. Sanders has got one grade 10. And there's one grade 10 class left on Monday. So they'll all have heard from us in a big group setting, but also in a classroom setting where they can ask questions and the like. Our doors are always open, and all these resources and more are available online. Okay? Oh, and that line about senior teachers, is also super good. Right? Your teachers have lived through this experience, and they can comment more on your sons and daughters' math skills or science skills than I can. All I see is a percentage, but they actually see the student work, right? So they're a good resource too. I tell the students here, you know, honestly, your grade 11 year is kind of an experimental year, right? A little bit. Now the marks do matter. You know, they're little disciplined into nothingness. Your grade 11 marks are used to determine a scholarship at the end of your grade 12 year. So I want you to be aware that they're not, you know, they're not meaningless. They're relevant. And if you're a high achieving kid in grade 11 and you're interested in early admission, your marks also come into play. So for the majority of our students, the focus is really on grade 12 grades. So when I say that grade 11 is kind of like to experiment, to keep options open, a lot of our kids take a Chem and Physics 11, because that gives them the option to go to sciences at university. Now they'll have had a full year of that, and they will know whether or not that pathway is still the same as it was at the start. Because grade 12 gets harder, right? So if you're pulling off marks in the 70 range in grade 11 sciences, then maybe that's not the best fit for you. And that is not the end of the world, right? There's all sorts of other ways of finding a better fit. These grade 11 marks at the kids, I tell them, pay attention to those marks. They're an accurate reflection, if you're working, of what your strengths and weaknesses are. That's probably the best bit of counseling information they have. When a kid comes to me and asks me about every good courses for me, the first thing I do is pop their marks up, so I can have an idea what their strengths and weaknesses are. So we got prerequisite standards mentioned in the course programming guide. Pay attention to those. They're not there just for fun. Okay? It's all about keeping realistic options. This is the thing I said I wasn't going to show you or spend much time on. These are the grad requirements. And we literally make sure the kids get through that. We check it all out. It's fed through computers and all that stuff. Our kids graduate. Right? This is something really extreme. So I'll leave it in there. It's in the slideshow, but you can peruse that later. It's unfortunate, but we have to spend a great deal of time on UBC and SFU because the majority of our students end up there. So we have to focus kind of on there, and their requirements are the most kind of stringent. And if you meet their requirements, there's a good chance you've met the requirements for any school across the country. So we focus on SFU and UBC. But as we're going to talk about, there are a lot of other options out there. And for example, our kids are going to outside of BC, in other Canadian universities. We got kids going to U of T, Waterloo, Trent, Dalhousie, all sorts of schools. Kids are looking at those places. Those are very good schools, and sometimes the entry requirements, certainly compared to UBC, are a little more accessible. So some of our students, not a lot, but some of our students do opt for that. And we're finding out about that now. Our college program. The BC college program is a university transfer program. If I put here, the courses are cheaper, they're closer. Lots of times they have teachers, professors who are really into teaching. So for some of our kids who aren't ready for that week to a school of 45,000 kids, well, college might not be a bad option. And you can make your choose your courses to make sure they're transferable if you stay in BC for sure. So it's a good option, right? I strongly encourage that, right? When our kids are grade 12s right now, I tell them to have a main option and a backup option, at least one backup option. There are a lot of kids waiting on tenterhooks, waiting to find out whether or not they got into UBC early admission. Those marks are super high, right? It's like 92, you know, and all that kind of stuff. They're super high. But some of those kids, though, I got right there in my back pocket. Or I could have already been accepted into a place like SFU or whatever. They have another option. You know, one of the things you hear a lot about nowadays is stress, right? kids stressed about getting into a certain school, it lowers their stress. I physically can see it in them if they know they have another option to go to. For you as parents, I know it's tough, right? Because we all have that dream of UBC or whatever it would be, but they have to find the best fit, what fits best for them. And we have a lot of good options in BC. Technical schools, like BCIT, right? 8 of our grads from last year ended up at BCIT. And BCIT is a wonderful option, but you kind of have to have an idea of what you want to go for to apply to a specific program. That's the trick, because you don't go in there and discover yourself. You know, BCIT is very hands-on, you're in a program, you're working really quick. What I like about BCIT, though, is that I find, well, they got great programs, but they'll also work with a kid who, you know, maybe doesn't have the marks to get into UBC engineering, but they got the work ethic, they got the passion. And those instructors recognize that and will work with a kid that way. So it's a good program for some of our kids. We can just scroll through these really quick. Just very quickly show you, just to, you know, to convince you, 8 kids BCIT. Our kids go to all these different schools. Right, out of the 100 and whatever 40 grads that we had last year, they go to all sorts of different schools. So it's not all just about UBC and SFU. Okay? Yeah. If you've got those course selection sheets, I'll ask you to get them out now and turn to the back, because we're going to kind of follow along through here, right? As we work through this particular sheet, do you have a sheet like this? Here's one. But here, I do think, can we go back one? These course selection sheets, it's not very clearly laid out here, but you know where you see in the grade 11 or 12 column, you see English, you see the math courses, the science courses, and then you see the socials courses. Those are important courses because they are generally academic approved. So that means universities look for them for programs. And of course, if you're a science kid, they look for more science courses. If you're arts, they look for more arts. But they're going to tell you to have an X amount of courses, 5 or 6 of those types of courses clicked off, so you can be considered for admission, and your GPA can be considered for UBC, SFU, or any school. So those courses are specifically kind of important. So academically approved versus you see these ones down here where they have ABSC courses that they call it. That could be hit or miss as to whether or not it's academically approved, or whether or not the program will actually allow for it to be used. So I always tell the kids, make sure you have enough academically approved courses, and then you can also play around with the other ones. In the course programming guide, we talked about this, what's worthwhile, what's useful, we talked about that. Right? But 6 of these academically approved. Right? There are a few new course names. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. And we'll kind of go through this, but we put that slide in there. There are English curriculum changed about a year or 2 ago, and it's now called English Studies 12. And I think we've done a wonderful job of offering a very balanced English curriculum. And ours is kind of unique to Thomas More. But for you guys, English Studies is a course you've got to choose. You got no option, right? So that's it. Second language shows up here, and a little bit later on. You didn't need a French to graduate. No, you do not. Right? You do not need a second language to graduate. So a lot of our kids will opt to not do it, but most of our kids do opt to do it. Right? They do opt to take a French, probably 80%. Why would they do that? Because SFU and UBC still have that as an entry requirement. French 11. French 11. Now some of you are deciding for your grade 12 what your sons and daughters are going to do. French 12 is a requirement not to get into UBC Arts, but to get out of UBC Arts. So if you don't have French 12 done, you have to take another language at the university level We sometimes can be a longer road than just ripping the Band-Aid off and getting it done right in grade 12. Right? That's the French thing. Now, some people, right, are with our LE department, right? And they're getting learning strategies, we call it now. And they've abandoned French. They're not teaching French in lieu of extra help. That's cool, right? You haven't shut the door off totally to university. First of all, you go to college and then transfer. Second of all, the world is opening up as we speak. So if you have a diagnosed learning disability, universities are really embracing that, right? They are finding a way to get those kids in and to help those kids. There's funding available. There's all sorts of stuff. It's very, very cool what's happening in that particular area. But you need a recent, and those parents that are involved in this psyched test that shows that there's a disability there, and then the wheels just start opening. So most kids used to be kind of left out in the cold. Now they're invited to be part of the school population at the university, and they get support. So I really, those of you that are in that LA type thing, the psyched test takes a long time to get. It has to be fairly recent, like late grade 10, 11, 12. So you might want to put it on your radar to get that. Yeah. Math options. Now, I know some of you are in grade 11, going into 11, going into 12. Workplace math, we only have very few kids in that. Workplace has a lot of limitations on what kids can do. And it's a bit of a misnomer because you would think workplace, that's got to get you into BCIT. It does, but they make you do upgrade right from the get-go. Right? So it's literally just to get kids through math for graduation. So I think there's very few kids here. Now, foundations of math. And grade 11 parents, how many are in here? Now, if you are in pre-calc 11, or if you're in foundations pre-calc 10, right? Now you got a decision to make. You can go the pre-calc stream or the foundation stream in grade 11. Foundation stream, what does it give you? It gives you the capacity to go to university as an art student, basically, right? So it's a wonderful option for some of our kids to go to the foundation stream. So that's one option. If you want to keep all your options open, you go to the pre-calc stream. Right? That's a tough course. That's much different. It's theoretical. That's telling you might want to be a scientist, you might want to be an engineer, you might want to be a doctor. So that's a tougher course. So you got to choose now, as a grade 10 parent, should I consider foundations or pre-calc? I would say, kind of a rough mark, to consider is 70. If you're a little 70 or a little below, then you might consider the foundation stream. The best people to ask are the teachers, right? I can't attest to how hard the kid is working. I like the foundation stream. We don't have enough kids opt for it. I don't think. We have a lot of kids who are keeping that option of going into sciences alive, and they're just suffering with pre-calc 11, Chem 11, and physics 11. So I'll do a little bit more. So here you can kind of see, this is how you go here. The foundations of pre-calc is here. Down here it's kind of cut off, but that's the workplace. Then in grade 11, you choose between these two streams. You can go to foundations 12 or pre-calc 12, and these two are to be taken simultaneously in your grade 12 year. Right? The big decision that kids have to make. I gotta say we have one block of foundations 11 now. We have two blocks of foundations 12. Why does that happen? Because in grade 11 they hit the wall, and I see them in my office. You see them at home. They're struggling with their math. You're getting them with tutoring. They're doing everything, and they're pulling off their 70s. And they know that if I want to go to sciences or whatever, 70's not going to cut it. It adds to their stress. So finally, they can make a decision. Sometimes in the grade 11 year, sometimes in the summer between 11 and 12, and sometimes very early in the grade 12 year. maybe I should do foundations. And I tell you, you don't have to be an expert to tell from the body language that these kids have had a big stress relief for them, right? They just pick up. You see it in their shoulders. And they're university-bound kids, right? But in the arts, right? And the pre-calc is for people who want to be doctors or engineers or whatever. That's a big decision to make. Excellent. So there they are. If you are grade 12 and your son is in foundation, or daughter, foundations a lot of now, you should take Foundations 12. Handy to take both. Foundations 12 is a good course to take if you did the Foundations 11 stream. Pre-calc, if you're a kid interested in science, business, any of that, pre-calc 12 is a must. Right? So you take a pre-calc 12. Right? Next slide. Calculus. You'll see calculus is an option on here. Right? For grade 12 parents, should I take calculus? Should my son or daughter take calculus? In a nutshell, I would say this. If you are heading into engineering, science, engineering and science, I'd say yes. You want to see it in high school. It's a tricky course. Those of you that have survived it know it's a tricky course. Some people get it. Some people don't. It's a tough course. So you want to see it in high school so that if you have trouble with it, hit that mark and start again in grade 12 and do better in the course. Or in university, do better in the course. Number one thing I hear from alumni coming back, I am so happy I took calculus in high school. That's science, kids for sure, engineering kids for sure. But if you're a business kid and you want to go to solder to be, and you do business at the colleges too, that's not a big deal to take calculus. But if you want to go to SFU or solder at UBC, I'll tell you, they don't put it down as a requirement. I've been to so many information sessions for those schools. First question the kid asks, do I need to take solder? It's not a requirement, but we highly, highly recommend it. I got it at the top in big letters. It's a gateway course. Universities will talk about it because some of those courses with very accomplished students have 50% failure rates. Right? It's kind of, they almost use it as a way who gets in and who doesn't. So it's a tough course. You got to get through it, and then you're cool, especially as a business person. But you got to get through it. So I'd say business, highly, highly recommended. Science, engineering, I would say almost mandatory. If you look now at SFU's requirements for engineering, they actually have it as a requirement. And as you crawl across the east province, you will see more people making calculus an absolutely mandatory course for people heading to sciences and even business. It's a tough course, not going to lie. And, if kids struggle with it, there are things we can do to massage it. We can do that, but it's so important that they see it. I would never let calculus or struggling calculus impact the kids' chances to get into post-secondary. There's ways we can massage it, right? To kind of lessen the blow from that. Computer science it's first year, I think, we offer AP. But computer science is a new option. There's our computer science teacher back there. Yeah.
Over there.
If I say anything wrong, I'll take it. Okay, good. Computer science is in a math course. It fits into the same category as pre-calc and computer science. So it's a tough course. It's a tough academic course. And some kids say, well, I can do computers. They might be able to do computer programming at a lower level. Computer science is far more challenging. You've got to have an interest in it, a purpose for it. What I like about it is that when you look at university catalogs, they will say, hey, to get into the PD business, you can use math or any math-related course. So if you happen to be a computer science kid, that's a good way to get another course to help your GPA. But I want you to know it's not easy. Right? There's more about this later on. Science. And parents going into grade 11. Again, Most common thing is physics and chemistry. Students want to keep their legitimate options open would choose those courses. We run a bit of a risk there because some kids hit the wall in those two courses. They just do. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing because you're finding out stuff about your strengths and your weaknesses. That's good intel to have. Right? For a lot of kids, grade 11 represents the first time they've ever had to deal with any kind of academic adversity. And it will hit them in grade 11, 12, and further on. Right? Wow. Right? So students in low B's in these math sciences in grade 10 in prerequisite courses, I'll tell you, I will pull them aside and I'll say, is there a purpose for this? Why do you want to take these courses? And if they give me a good reason, I say, go ahead and be prepared to work hard. But I sometimes we get kids going, I don't know, I was just keeping my options open. Well, you're going to get nailed there. So we like to kind of intervene before that happens. Hope that makes sense. Remember, if you're going to go into sciences at university, that's your goal. Right? 86% or so in the senior science courses get into SFU, around, maybe a little less. And UBC, 92, right? So it's not for the weak of heart. This is like kids that are really, love that stuff. I don't want that to mean that your kid, everybody has friends. Everybody has gifts. It's a matter of finding the right gift. Right? The right gift. There you go. Science question. So I've been asked this like 4,000 times in the last, and we only have 100 kids. But how many sciences should I take as a grade 11 or 12? If you're a serious science student, you would like exposure to all three science 11s. There's a few ways to skin that cat, a few ways to do that. You could take, say, physics and chem, right? And then the next year, take, say, chem and bio, or anatomy and physiology 12. So now you've got bio, you've got chem, you've got physics, you've seen them all. Right? So that's an option. I gotta say though, if you talk to our science teachers, they really think life science 11 is a great tool to have in your arsenal. Because when you get to university, the first 2 years of science, of bio, life science, is more like life science 11 than it is the science 12, anatomy and physiology 12. Right? So if you really like it, yeah, take 3. But if you're not sure, don't put yourself through that. It doesn't make sense. Keep other options open. Right? There are kids who would rather sit in the science class than sit in the social class. There are kids like that. I'm not. I wasn't. Right? But there are kids like that. So for them, it works. Right? Excellent. Yes. Socials options. Now this is good, right? These are courses that are universally accepted in universities, right? Especially if you're going to the arts. So this is where our kids will pick up some credits. We've done some, they're lucky. They need a socials 11 to graduate, but we only offer socials 12, or 12, courses after 12. Well, but they don't grad. No, they count a grade 12 course in replacement of an 11. Good thing for your kids, because now they meet the socials requirement for graduation, and they also have a course that will be high enough to our use for university GPA purposes. As an added kicker, you see these two guys here, social justice and genocide, economics and economics theory. They're 8 credit courses. 1 block, 8 credits, right? That's a good deal. Right? So kids can take that. It's accelerated, they call it. The learning outcomes are covered. And you get, by taking that, you get 8 credits that a university would look at for a university, for a district. Yeah, Mr. Sanders.
Just going back to science, you mentioned anything about specialized science at all? Was I speaking in that part?
No, you did not. Word. I didn't say anything.
Okay, you say that later?
Absolutely, Mr. Sanders. Thanks for checking and ruining my mojo. Yeah. So So, yeah, a potential, yeah, I'm going to come back to this. And this thing, yeah, standards. We have a specialized science club. Some kids struggle with science, so they can't get, they have trouble with the life sciences, chem, and physics, but you need a science 11 to graduate. So the government has created this course called Specialized Science 12. Although it's number 12, it meets the requirement as a Science 11. It's also, of course, number 12. And we have a new teacher who's been here a couple of years, but this year she took that course over, Mr. Paul. And it's kind of an interesting course to take. So it's very project-driven. So if a kid likes a certain, let's say they like kinesiology, like cars or whatever, she will focus the course for that specific kid in the class. It's really small. There's not a lot of kids in it. But she will do that. And the kid will meet the requirements for graduation and be a happy camper. But I think it could actually have some application for some of your sons and daughters who might just, she does a wonderful job, right? It's a small group, very personal. I think it's a good option for some. But very important to realize, if your university aspirations, universities don't look at that for GPA, right? They don't look at it. So it's interesting. Excellent. Social, these ones we talked about, these are all, you need an applied skill fine arts graduate, right? And so we have all these different options. I gotta say, one block of applied skills fine art over 3 years. So if you get band 10, you got it covered, right? There's all sorts of options for this. So most of our students get this covered some way, right? So you can take more, of course, right? There's no shortage of it. But these are some of the options here. Now let's go through this. Let's see if we've got something here that might be useful. I do want to stress a little bit more about this, right? We've got some course changes, but it's actually kind of a change in the focus of what we had. You guys might remember Mr. Kittle. We had a long time woodworking program and guitar building program. We have changed that, and we've made it more into a not just hands-on stuff, but also an engineering type of course. In fact, it's called engineering. I don't know this, Mr. Smith, if you want to comment, because your son is in engineering 12.
So my son is in engineering 12, and he wants to be a mechanical engineer. That's what he's pursuing for September. So he's got his applications out, and he's already been accepted into several places. But he's found that engineering 12 to be a fantastic course. So they are learning the skills, hands-on skills in the workshop, learning how to use all of the various tools, and then how to apply those tools to designing projects, and then how to analyze the design process, how to choose the materials, etc. And so as he's doing these interviews for scholarships and doing his applications for scholarships, he has something really cool to write about. So these projects, he's also in a future science leaders program at Science World, and he's finding that the skills that he's doing in Engineering 12 transfers directly over into the projects that he's doing at Science World. So he's getting it at both places, but he's found that this is really, really, really helpful. So I highly recommend it. If you have a son or daughter who's aiming towards the engineering stream, whether it's going to be at UCIT or a technical school or university, this would be excellent. And the engineering 12, so when he was filling out his applications for University of Toronto, Waterloo, UBC, engineering 12 is one of the courses he could select, and then he would take that and look at that for his GPA or his admissions. So it looked really impressive.
It does. It is. It's just that I think the only caveat I have is that if you want to be an engineer, you're taking physics, chem, calculus, pre-calc, and English. And I do think, to be fair, these are challenging courses. It's not you're making a guitar and sanding a block of wood. Wonderful courses, wonderful. I love that idea. But just so that the kids enter it knowing that that's a possibility.
The projects that they're doing are very, very thorough. So one that he had due last week was hours and hours and hours worth. First he was building the projects, and then came the presentation where he had to discuss and look through his projects and the pros and cons, what he changed, how would he design it, and look through and really analyze it. So it is a challenging course, but really worthwhile, and that's the area that your child is aiming for. So again, it's finding that right fit. What is the goal for your child?
Yeah, moving on. Yeah, we can go through these. These are, well, first of all, where is he? Is he gone again? Mr. Brown is here. He's filming this. Mr. Brown offers a course called Media Arts, which teaches basic recording. If you've watched our galas or any of our, his kids do that. His students do that. It's a very popular course. Media Arts is on here. Yes. Now, we'll do the next thing. I do want to, now I'm under the gun because with the computer teacher, there's Mr. Brown. I want, because he was really upset I didn't announce him yesterday. Hello, Mr. Brown. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. And you gotta be careful with these courses, but some of these, like these ones, are ones that, if you look at STMC, by the way, I should have started with this. You have to do your own research to make sure. I couldn't put together a book that would cover everything. But these types of courses are now things that could be included in the GPA for like an art student, or certainly a fine art student, or even an art student. They'll let you use that. So those are courses that back in the day, while we were taught, you didn't care. Now schools are looking at those. Now, I did want to spend a little bit of time with these computer programming. And some people are a little confused about the computer programming. And Mr. Zelenko, if you want to join in or talk, yeah. Can I take the mic? Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of possessive, really.
So I'm new to the school here this year, and I've kind of put this plan together to hopefully give everybody who's interested in computer technology a chance to grow with that. Whether you are looking for a university perspective, or if you like just do it on your own, or somewhere in between. Like, I want to have something available for everybody to do. So what we did is we started with Computer Programming 11, which is kind of a gateway to computer science. We're continuing with, we call it a slightly less vigorous option, or rigorous option. In Computer Programming 11, we look at specifically JavaScript. We kind of take it in a few different directions, but we don't necessarily go down one path where you where you gain a lot of knowledge. It's very specific, but has limited application in regular use. We're looking more about regular use. So Computer Programming 12 kind of continues with that. In general, I don't try to assign too much homework in these courses. It's experiential, so when you're in class, you're working hard, but you generally don't have to take that home with you. Computer science, that one is a little bit more challenging. It always has been. This is where, if you are looking to continue with, especially computer science as you go into college or university, that is a good leg up. In fact, even though this option does not include the AP exam at the end, there are a few reasons for that, but this deals with about 70 to 80% of the same information. And that really sets you up for the first year of computer science completely finished in university. Once you have this knowledge, you can basically breeze through the course, open your eyes sometimes really faster than you frequently do. But that being said, it puts that pressure on you a little bit earlier. So it can be difficult if it's a heavy semester to do both that and maybe a math or physics or chemistry. It can be a bit overwhelming. So trying to figure out what you're aiming at, especially if you're looking at computer science down the road, and if you can handle that, because sometimes you don't necessarily want to. Maybe you like continuing with computer science, so you want to just have it as an ancillary option.
exactly what I would have said. Psychology was, we always offered AP psychology, and we removed the AP designation. It does mean that a kid can use it for university application purposes for GPA. But what it does give Mr. Delazari, the teacher, is AP psychology, if you're in that room, is so focused on the exam. You're spending your whole time following all the PowerPoint slides, all about the exam, all about the exam. And psychology is usually a course that kids have a lot of interest in general, and that's why they want to take it. So he's talking about, you know, as a psychology course, rather than AP, he can have the students survey the student body about something and process the data and all that kind of stuff. And kind of the stuff why kids get into psychology. So I think this was a good move to go to psychology. The only caveat, I would say, is now you're dealing with a course that's for interest, would look good on any kind of application, university application, but the actual mark you couldn't use for GPA purposes. Summer school or no summer school, right? That is the question. I think when you talk to Mr. Spandrews and just with and myself, we're not huge summer or online program fans. It certainly has its application. I'm not going to say it does not work. It does for some people. And but what we're, you know, you got to be clear on the reason that you are taking it. If you don't have room in your schedule, like you want to do the 3 sciences thing or something like that, a legit reason for why you want to take it, that's not a problem. If you're taking it because you think that's an easier way to get to a higher mark, because that's kind of the word on the street, that's not necessarily the best way to go. Universities do track online courses. They'll ask you about it, right? They'll ask you about it. You know, you got to be honest with what they do track, right? So you got to watch that, right? And this DeWitt, Waterloo, which is, you know, an elite school to get into, they even will give away a March script, up to 5% off an online course. So it's really incumbent upon the student to think, why am I taking this course? Is it to keep me busy during the summer, to fill my day, to hang out with friends? What we found in the last little while is that kids actually aren't performing as well as they hope to, because that's 6 weeks, 4 hours a day, right? Where you're sitting in that classroom. It's intense. But some kids try to take 2 courses. I don't know about you, but summer for me was a time to relapse, you know, recharge my batteries, all that kind of stuff. We talk about student stress. We talk about it all the time. And if you're going taking a full load during the summer, and then you're arriving in September, and you're already bagged from having gone through the summer worth of stuff, you know, I think you're just adding to a stress load, right? And the point is, we've had some wonderful kids graduate the last few years without any summer or online courses. Mr. Witt's son, you don't have to, right? There is some space for it, but you don't have to. Yes, and this is the important thing. UBC and a lot of other schools will ask you now to submit a personal profile. Why should I come into this school? Why am I a good fit for UBC? And they're going to ask you things, when did you take an opportunity to leave? When did you challenge yourself? When did you learn new experiences? Those types of things aren't covered in GPA, right? Those are things you've actually lived experience. So you can develop a lot of soft skills. You know, that you guys know those are valuable skills. Leadership, service, communication, that you can comment on in your personal profile, in your scholarship letters and stuff. I write a zillion scholarship letters. GPA is covered in 3 numbers, 82.3. What did you do to serve your community, to give of yourself? And the summer is the time to do that, right? So I think, if I could just say, at one point, about 3 or 4 years ago, UBC came out with this breadth and rigor kind of idea that they wanted to see more rigor and breadth in courses, they would measure that. And I knew right away, all the counselors said, you know what's going to happen? People are going to load up with courses just to make their resume look good. They're going to take AP courses to begin with. That's what you're going to get. And they said, well, no, that's not what happened. So there was a lot of pressure put on kids and parents to think, look, I got to give junior the best chance to get into school. So take more courses. And honestly, I got to say, it doesn't pay off. I don't think so. For some, I don't want to say no to everybody, but some cases, yeah, it's legit. But for the most part, I think you need to break.
What else are you going to offer to the school rather than just the school curriculum? So we want to know who you are.
Yeah, that's the profile stuff, right? And I think this is, I don't know if we have a link to it real quick. So that's just basically it, right? And you got to think, we've had kids, say, in the math department, will be the first to support this. They take, pre-calc foundations 10 in the summer, they're good students, and all of a sudden they come in 11, and there's gaps. They didn't get all the information. And they don't do as well in grade 11 as they would hope to. It just makes sense, right? Six weeks during the summer versus a full year. It's hard to teach all that stuff and let it resonate and stay with you. So sometimes that's an issue. Right? Now, I'll just tell you that when you get to you sit next to junior, and you're doing Google choices, course choices on your Google on PowerSchool, you'll see at the top, if you're going to take the summer course, fill out this form. You want to know about it? So for planning, right? So if you're going to take, say, Life Science 11 during the summer, we want to know that you want to do it. You still choose another schedule. And what would you take when you complete it? There's all sorts of reasons why we do that. So it just makes it easier for you, for us, and for you guys, it's better to track that with a form. Okay? So, yeah, I don't think we'll go through that whole thing. Study blocks, this is only for grade 12. Grade 12, we're always asking if younger grades get study blocks. We don't encourage it. Does it happen? Yes, but not very often. One of the main reasons is that we just don't have enough room. Poor Mr. Witt works in the library, that's where we have study blocks. And she has blocks with 40 kids in there, right? So if we let the grade 11s all have studies, it would be a little bit crazy. In addition, I think taking full course loads in grade 11 and 10 just opens up the world of options for them when they get to grade 12. And that's where you can apply for a study block. There's an application form on that same Google Classroom site. We hardly ever say no. And we really gotta, know. But we want you to know that your kid is, your son or daughter is taking the study block, right? So we're trusting you to be aware of it when they submit that. TA blocks, I don't know how much you wanted to look to this. Teaching assistant blocks. This is kind of cool. A kid has a study already. They got courses and credits through the EA. They've done courses during the summer or anything else. And we're looking for a way to fill their blocks. And a TA block works. It's nothing you can sign up for. It happens in September. And there's limited appeal, limited application to everybody. But we probably have 30 kids who have TA blocks. It's kind of cool, right? Because you got to find a teacher that will work with you. And you go to that class and you make tutor kids in math, if you're strong in math, right? You might tutor kids in science and work as a teaching assistant, right? Plans are to make it a credit course. I don't know if we'll pull it off, but we'd like to. But what it does do is it gives you great stuff to write about in your personal profile, right? It's wonderful. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that, every kid's different. So you get some kid who's haven't hit the wall, he's not very strong academically, but he's got a personality through the youth and he's good. And you put him into learning assistance, where he's working with these kids, you just kind of have a feel, that feel connect. Oh my gosh. It's like a Disney movie someday. They're just so good with them. They just have that innate ability. Very cool. Finally the slide, trusting us. I know it's a lot of information you throw at you. You can certainly read it on your own, what's on these slides. And there's other resources, the programming guide, just to look to send a couple other tools, there's tons to read. You could really, cause like, stress for yourself trying to figure it out. We can make it work, right? We've done this a lot. We have wonderful teachers, right? Who can advise your kids and write letters and recommendations. Our community really kicks in there. So I know it's hard, but if you feel it sometimes as a parent, because it's just overwhelming for you, you can trust us. We'll make sure your sons and daughters are taken care of. Always feel free to ask a question. I like emails. Right? I gotta say, arranging personal just always feel guilty, eh? Because can I meet with you? Well, that's hard for me to do, right? To arrange my schedule for a personal meeting. But an email where I can sit at home while I'm watching the Canucks win, I can comment back. Right? So I'm just going to turn it over to Ron. If this is going on long, how does he hold the mic to explain her?
All right, so on our website, on the STMC website, we have put all of the information that you have access to. So the first one is under programs, and then you go into the academics, and then you can select departments. You can select each department that you want to read about. The courses are all listed, and the course descriptions are all listed. So that's one option. Then we also have, we put this slide in here just for your interest as well. So UBC has put together a few excellent resources of how they are accepting your applications for your students, your children, and what they're looking for. So these are little video links. So it explains the process. So those are in the slideshow. SFU also has a really good called an admissions compass. So even if your child is not thinking SFU, this compass looks to help select the courses that they may want to go through. So they would choose all the courses that they're currently in for grade 11 or thinking about for grade 11 or 12, and then it spits out this list. Based on these courses, you can apply to faculty of such and such in these programs. So it gives you that filtered option list based on the courses that your child is either taking or considering taking. So that's that SFU compass. It's a really good tool, even if you're not aiming for SFU. So also on the website, we put together other things about post-secondary. All right, so looking ahead, what are those options, those A option, B option that your son or daughter is aiming for? Because that's really important. Are you aiming for the arts? Are you aiming for business, the engineering? So here under programs, instead of going to the academics tab, then we would go to the post-secondary tab. And then we've got a few options in here. So the academic counseling resources, and then we've got this career counseling resource guide. So we go in here. So the career counseling guide is sort of a comprehensive book, what I call it. And so it's labeled in the table of contents. You would just go into the tab that you would like, and it's really like a book. So it covers everything from choosing the school, post-secondary, to scholarships, everything like that. So that's also available for you. Also for if your son or daughter is looking at what does grad look like, that's also in there. Just really quickly, this education planner, this is put together through the province, and it's a search platform. So it's a way to click in and search through all the different post-secondary options that are available to your son or daughter. It has excellent resources, even for parents. They've got all these quick guide sheets on how to walk through this process with your child. If this is your first son or daughter who's going to post-secondary, they have excellent resources. How to help your child make those decisions, how to do those applications, and how to go through that admission process. It really is kind of like a one-stop shop for the BC institution. All right.
you up with a ton of information. And I expect to see you in June after you've looked at it all, because there's so much there. There's no shortage of information. But if anybody's any questions, we're more than willing to answer. If anybody has any now, any questions? Yes.
If you didn't have your French, so you went directly to college, how long do you have to go to college for? What do you have to achieve there to be able to
Typically 2 years. Yeah.
And then you don't have to make up that French course in your experience.
You can,
College
yes.
is in lieu of the French.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to just learn, and then you have your English level. They both have the same pattern on the test book. So what is the advantage of this?
Good question, right? Because you can go to the Enrich, put that on the course selection, and then the department head decides, because there's usually more demand than spaces. Why would you take Enrich? They challenge the students with more higher level math. They kind of know those kids are going to go off to calculus or another course, so they'll ask more difficult questions, right? You would break the same kind of test, but yeah, it's just more challenging. But it doesn't show, you're right, it doesn't show on the transcript. It only shows as pre-calculated. Some kids say, I don't like that. You know, I just want to be regular. Yeah, but that's a very good question. Yes?
So, really basic question. How many courses that's enough to take in grade 11 and 12? Because if I look at, that's at least 1. And then it's not going to be 8 courses.
That's right.
7.
Yeah. So if you look at, when you get to the course selection screen, you'll see that it will say you've got to choose one here, and you have to choose for grade 11, a total of 8 courses, all 4 credits each, okay? And then in grade 12, you can choose 28, but fill up, is that right, Sam? Yeah, and then do the other one as a study block, right? It becomes a lot clearer than looking at this board when you're actually looking at the actual screen, the course selection screen. Okay? It will actually lay it all out. Believe me, it's
8 courses, grade 11, and 8 or 7 courses, and the study block.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can do 8, yeah, 12. You can do morning courses as well. Some of our kids do courses off schedule. Right? Yeah. Yeah. If BC passes, periodically that piece they have, it's not universally required. Okay? So you know, because so many of our kids go to BC that want to keep that option open, they will take that course. But it's if you've got a university bound kid that can handle French at the grade 11, I say take it, and then you've got your bases covered, right? At grade 11. Like my daughter was a science person and decided in grade 12, oh, I'm not going to take French 12, I'll take another course because if I'm doing anything with science. But she had to grade 11. Yeah. Yeah, true. Oh, that ABS, those art courses? You need one between grade 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, but most of our kids will end up getting bored just to finish the schedule, right? That's what the schedule is something that interests us. Most band or choir kids will stay right to grade 12. 12. Right? So they've got 3 of them. You don't want to overload in there, well, because you can only do so many for university purposes. Right? So that's the scary part. Yeah? I like personally, it depends. If you want to be an engineer, right, they're all about chem and physics. Right? But if you want to go into general sciences, especially if you want to go into something that's health related, then you can move to the anatomy and physiology. You know, as a first year science student, you usually see exposure to all 3 sciences, so that's why we kind of encourage that. Right? Yeah. No, because life science 11 is cells and all that stuff, but the 12 is all anatomy. Right? But the only caveat I will say is that our science teachers will say that first and second year bio at university is more like life science 11. Right? They do say that. Can you get away without it? Yeah, you can. My daughter did that. She's a bio major, but you got to pay some catch up in your first year, right? There is a bit of a price to pay. Right? Yeah. 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 A grade 12 kids can continue life science 11. They certainly could, or if they need to fit 10 or physics in, they certainly can. Right? 11 that they don't have it yet. I did want to say, hey, although we have course selection deadline of March 4th, those courses are not set in absolute stone, right? Because, well, I'm thinking that some students still have 6 or 4 months of school left. What is it? It feels like it isn't. So their minds might change, and they might change their mind. The primary purpose right now of asking for these grades now, or these courses now, is to get your best guess, because then it goes to the event, and they count up, okay, we got 60 kids that want to take life science 11. How many blocks do we have to offer? How many teachers? It's for planning, right? So that's the primary purpose. If a few kids change one way or the other, we can handle that, right? So yeah, don't be too panicked and say, oh, what can you do? So you're not. Right? Even at university, by the way. Absolutely, right? Yeah.
And
No.
then the second piece is just an emphasis on looking at the curriculum where you're student is relevant. So then you're looking at the student looking at the specific program and what the prerequisites for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is that your position?
It absolutely does. Like I should have stressed it more. Like research by you, I apologize ahead of time because some of those sites, they're not set up very logically, and each site is very unique. And you look for one thing one place, and it's a bit of a headache, right? We kind of have a decent handle on UBC and SFU, but when kids come to see me, I still okay, let's look at Waterloo. And you're clicking through buttons and you're looking, and but to be proactive and to do your own research, right? Now I got to say, kids who go outside the province are pretty good at doing that research. Right? They have a clue about what they want to do. I may have to corroborate it, but they're pretty good. So they're proactive. Right? But you know, great point. Kids will say, come up to us, I want to go to the States. You have any idea what that's about? Right? Well, it's nice to say. I want to take IB courses because I want to be a doctor. Well, that's wonderful, right? But you know, that to be realistic, are you willing to let them go on a province, right? Can you afford that, right? Kids ask all those questions, right? And I say, look, you got to talk that over with the folks. Make sure they're okay with it, right? And then do your research. And like I said, I encourage all the kids to have one primary option for sure, and at least 1 or 2 backup. I'm thinking of one girl now, she's got 7, which is, I think, too much, right? You got to pay for every one of those, and how any of this is realistic, but to have a backup, definitely, and to do your own research. Yeah, and the information changes all the time. I was sweating yesterday because I saw something on the UBC. I don't remember seeing SFU site. What? I don't even see it on you scoured through it, and I looked at this thing and what's going on? Yeah.
With that education planner, that was my first step. It is kind of like a one-stop shop. So you can go in there, you choose the tool that you're aiming for, and choose the program and the faculty, and from there you can see the courses that would be required to recommend.
But those kind of sites, make sure you tune it down a bit, right? Because if you start researching, oh my stars, you get overwhelmed, you think you're missing something, because you have to post that very often. But okay, I'm not going to Saskatchewan, I'm not going to here, I'm not going to else. You can narrow down your search and then choose the ones that are more likely to you want to do. Any other questions? Well, thank you, parents, for your interest. It's wonderful. It's great to see you here. It's great to see you face to face. That is wonderful. Right? I'm no good at the Zoom. I think Mr. Sanders and Mr. Whitman and myself will hang around a little bit. If you have individual questions and you want to ask them, we'll hang around for a bit. But thank you again for your attention. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just